When I was starting out, I didn't know much. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what job I wanted to have. I didn't even know how I was going to pay the bills. But one thing I was sure of was that I was different than my brother and my sister. I had an elder brother and a younger sister, and looking at them, I knew I could never be like them. I knew I could never excel at math and science like my brother did. I knew I could never have the same kind of physical self-discipline that my sister had and used to become a ballet dancer. Instead, I knew that I had different strengths, different talents. And although I was confused about a whole lot of stuff, I was just sure that the world was going to wait for me until one day I would pop out of school and get to make my unique mark on the world. And I bet you feel that way. I mean, think back to when you were in school. You knew that in school there were certain subjects that you were drawn to, certain subjects that just grabbed your attention and wouldn't let it go, certain classes where time whipped by and before you even knew it, the bell had rung, and although you wouldn't have admitted it, you kind of wanted the class to happen all over again. And if you didn't like school, then maybe there were certain situations you were drawn to, or certain people you wanted to be around, or certain times when you just knew you were at your best. And you wouldn't call those strengths, not yet anyway, but even back then you knew you had something. You knew you had something special. And now you're holding out hope that your life, your work, your job is going to give you a chance to show everyone what that special thing is. I do hundreds of these speeches every year to executives, and I tell them a message. I tell them how to figure out their strengths and put them to work, and they hear it, and they believe it, and they want to do it, but it's almost like they're too far down the road to do anything about it. They've got mortgages to pay, and they've got bills to think about, and they've got a growing family, and they've got a career, and they've got promotions, and it's almost like life has pushed them too far down the road now, and now they don't feel like they can make a choice. Well, you'll find that. You'll find that life gets really heavy really quickly, and the longer you wait, the heavier it gets, and if you're not really careful, you're going to wind up living some second-rate version of somebody else's life. You're going to wind up in a job where you're not engaged. A job where you're just marking time, where you're just putting in the hours until the weekend comes around. A job where you're not engaged and excited, but a job where you're bored, where you're drained, where you're burned out, where you're trapped. And when that happens, you can blame someone else. You can blame your teachers or your parents or your boss or fate. You can blame someone else, but the responsibility doesn't lie there. It lies with you. It lies with what you choose to do. So the question you got to get your head around right now, is how do you avoid that future? How do you avoid becoming one of the 8 out of 10 that don't play to their strengths? How do you get to build the kind of life where you are playing to your strengths in life most of the time? How do you build that life? How do you build that kind of success? What do you need to know? And what do you need to do before it's too late? Well, here are 3 myths that are going to hold you back. Here's the first myth. And everyone believes this one's true. The myth that as you grow older, your personality changes. It's not true. Here's what's true. As you grow older, you become more and more and more of who you already are. If you're really good at making friends now, you'll be even better at it in 20 years from now. If you're a neat freak now, then you're going to be a neater freak when you're 40. If you're an idea man now, you're going to be an idea man for the rest of your life. But of course what that means is that you need to get really good at describing what your strengths are. If your strengths don't change much during the course of your life, you need to become really specific at describing what they are. And most of us, frankly, are just terrible at that. If you're going to really push your time toward your strengths in life or in work, you've got to get much more specific than that. Now, you've been raised to believe that your strengths are what you're good at and your weaknesses are what you're bad at. But that's not true, is it, really? Come on, think about it. You've got some stuff that you're good at that you hate. I mean, you're good at it, so people ask you to do it. In fact, they rely on you to do it, and maybe they've even pigeonholed you into doing it. But if you never had to do it again, it'd be too soon. What would you call that? What do you call that? What do you call that when nature's blessed you with a ton of ability and given you no appetite at all? Where you're brilliant at something and it bores you to tears. What do you call that? Well, you call that a weakness. A weakness is any activity that leaves you weaker after you've done it. Doesn't matter how good you are at it. If it leaves you weaker after you've done it, it's a weakness. And of course, a strength is the opposite. A strength, your strengths, are those activities that leave you feeling strong. Those things that you do that make you feel strong. You need to pay incredibly close attention to how you feel before, during, and after an activity, because your feelings will give you a clue to what your strengths are. If before you do an activity, you actually find yourself looking forward to it, it's a strength. If while you're doing it, you find that you're in the zone, time flies by, you can totally concentrate, it's a strength. If after you're done with it, you feel fulfilled, it's a strength. Not fulfilled as in, thank goodness that's over, but fulfilled as in jazzed or jacked up, that's a strength. Now, the second myth that people are going to try and drag you off course with, and gosh, everyone believes this one, is they'll tell you, look, if you want to grow, if you want to get ahead in life, if you want to get promoted, you can't rely on your strengths. In fact, you've got to figure out what you're not good at and really work at getting better at it. And this starts really early in school, doesn't it? And this continues at work. It will. You'll go to your first performance review, and it'll be 2 minutes on what you did well, and then they'll really drill down into what you need to work on. And what you'll need to work on are your weaknesses. If you're not careful, your whole career is going to be one long remedial math class. Now, the point here isn't that you can ignore your weaknesses at work. You can't do that any more than you can ignore the F in school. The point is that you shouldn't be working on your weaknesses. You're not going to grow most in the areas where you're weakest. You should be working on your strengths. That's one of the truths that's so important for you to remember. You're going to grow most, learn the most, develop the most, be challenged the most, bounce back fastest when you're working on your strengths. If you want to know a truth, know this one. Always be working on your strengths. If you want to succeed in life, you've got to deliberately push your time toward where you have some unfair advantage over everybody else. Well, if you're going to be a great team player, you've got to have that kind of courage. You've got to have that kind of honesty. You've got to be able to take a stand for your strengths and then fess up to your weaknesses. And then surround yourself with people who are strengthened by the very things that weaken you. Then and only then are you going to achieve the kind of success that you always knew you could achieve. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be easy. You'll win, your company will win, your friends will win, your family will win, the world will win, everyone will win when you do. That's what I believe. But it doesn't matter what I believe. In the end, it matters only what you believe. So let tomorrow be a different day than today was. Let tomorrow be a stronger day than today was. By which I simply mean let tomorrow begin with you looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, what are my strengths and how can I contribute them today? And then let every day after that start the same way, because you've always known what your strengths are. You've always known what was inside of you. So trust them, be proud of them, and go out and make your mark.